Now this video is all about a particular model of Rolex Submariner, and that particular watch is right here, and it is the Rolex Submariner 16613. Now my name is Richard Perrett. I am a full-time watchmaker here in the United Kingdom in a place called Pembroke Dock, and I have just completed a repair and service of this really lovely watch. And in this video I'm going to use footage from that service to try and get across why I think of all the Submariners that Rolex have produced, and they've produced Submariners since 1953, that this particular version, the 16613, which has the 3135 movement inside it, this one is maybe the best one that Rolex has ever produced. I'm going to give you the detail on this in this video, so let's crack on with it. Yeah, so guys, this component here is the balance hack. Okay. Yeah, please don't forget to when you reassemble. Okay, so we've got the watch on the watch bench now, and we're all set up and ready to start work on it. But before we do that, let's come in and have a little look at exactly what we need to do with this Rolex. Okay, so this is a slightly better view of the watch, and just look at that dial, that kind of iridescent blue, which is really lovely. So the watch bezel isn't working properly. It's missing the click spring, which fits in here, and it was also missing, surprisingly, the tension ring, which goes around here. So I've ordered those, and we'll be fitting those as part of the service. The watch is also running not quite right. I put it on the time grapher and it's not perfect, so we're going to take a look at that now, sort of pre-service, and then we'll show it again post-service. So yeah, essentially, and there's also a repair to the bracelet. If I just show you here, hang on, just see if I can actually come in on this. And this is the part of the bracelet which is bent out of shape. You can see the bottom sort of wing of this clip, which I'm holding in the plastic tweezers, is nice and flat, but the top one in the center of the frame there has been bent outwards out of shape, and what that's doing then is that's causing this kind of retention clip on the deployment clasp to just come away and fall off every 5 minutes, which, you know, isn't great when you've got a, you know, £6,500 watch. It's really good for that to stay on your wrist. So we're gonna fix that up as well. So it's the bezel, sorting out the bezel. And here is the watch then, which we're just going to pop on the time grapher just to check the performance, at least dial up before we start the service. So in summary, the jobs that we need to do are the bezel, a full service on the movement, and to repair that deployment clasp retention clip. So let's crack on with that. Okay, so now with the Rolex on the time grapher, as you can see, we have a very characteristically strong beat here from this Rolex, and it's gaining 14 seconds a day, which, you know, is something that's too high. We're going to have to put that right. You know, it's not a sort of 500 quid Seiko, in which case we'd be quite pleased with that, but we need to get that down to more like you know, under 5, definitely. The beat error is good, there is no beat error, and the amplitude is okay, so maybe a touch low, but it's okay. So yeah, could do with the service. So we're going to do that now, and as we go, I'm going to tell you why this is such a great watch. Okay, so that is the removement part of the tool located properly. All we've got to do now is put a little bit of tension on it and turn it like that. This nice big bar is nice and agricultural for doing this part of it. This is the only way really that you should take off a Rolex case back. You don't want to be doing it with anything else because it's an expensive watch and you shouldn't damage anything. There'll come to a point when it is ready just to come off easily. You'll feel it go really loose. So I'm just going to finish taking this off now and rejoin the video when I've got the back off. Okay, and that's a really, really nice sight because there is the Rolex 3135 in watch movements. This movement is, you know, pretty massive in the sense that it's iconic. It's in an iconic watch, but you know, in the watchmaking fraternity, I guess there's a lot of respect for this movement. I mean, there kind of has to be because, you know, it is a really, really accurate workhorse for Rolex. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this apart, and as I do that, I'm going to stop every so often just to explain, you know, why this movement is so good. Okay, and I've got the automatic works off now, and I just thought I'd show you the amount of dirt that is inside this movement. As you can see, we've got these little black specks all over the place, and that's probably dried out lubricant. Now this watch probably hasn't had a service in a good few years, so you know, that's not unsurprising. But as you can see, you know, Rolex 3135 is a fine mechanism, and it doesn't really want to tolerate this kind of stuff. So this is why we're doing the service. And as I look at this, apart from that, it is all looking very nice and business-like and Rolex really. So let's crack on. Okay, so turning now to the outside of the watch as most people see it, and just look at that. Look at the iridescent colour of the dial and the way the gold lettering really stands out. The contrast is superb. We are talking here about probably the most iconic watch dial that there has ever been. And, you know, the sizes of the different parts of the dial have changed over the years, and on the latest version, the ones that you can buy new from an authorized dealer now, you'll find that these indices are slightly larger than you see here, and to my liking, I prefer them like this. I think they're slightly more elegant, and in this particular version we've got the blue and the gold, and you know, there's kind of an Egyptian thing going on there almost. Blue and gold is just like, I don't know, I've got some sort of Tutankhamun thing in my head. I don't know why, but it is like, oh, just so classy. Okay, so we're now below the calendar works, and as you can see, this movement is still really, really business-like and immaculate. This set assembly here, set of components here, just point that out, that handles the rapid date change. Okay, and that by that I mean the changeover at midnight. So rather than the date just sort of taking about an hour and a half to click over, this mechanism here handles that happening rapidly at the point of midnight. Underneath that we've got these sort of standard keyless works, and we've got the motion works here with the minute wheel and the hour wheel here, and here is the calendar wheel, and under this plate here there's a little jewel, and we have this lever here which is holding that jewel against a cam in there which has a jewel attached to it underneath this plate. So we need to be a little bit careful as we take all of that apart. But as I say, this is a very, very business-like and, you know, pretty movement. joy to work on. So let's crack on. Okay, so you've seen a little of the inside of the watch now, the Rolex 3135 movement, and just how beautiful and how functional that movement is. And you've seen a little of the keyless works and the calendar wheel, which is held tightly with a lever which is has a rotating jewel at the end of it, and all of that makes for how I would characterize the keyless works on this particular reference, and that is that they are solid and they are smooth. So, you know, all you have to do is unscrew the gold crown here, it pops out, and then in the first position you can put power on the watch like so. But if we just pull it out a little further, we immediately go into the rapid date change, which, you know, just watch that glide over there, which is just silky smooth, absolutely gorgeous. And then at midnight, when the watch turns around to midnight, it will click across really, really quickly. So yeah, the keyless works on this watch are absolutely gorgeous. And that's really important because, you know, that is the experience that the user has with the watch. All the stuff that I've talked about on the movement is valid, absolutely valid, but it's mainly watchmakers that, well, pretty much exclusively watchmakers that get to experience and deal with that. The keyless works are vital because that's how the wearer and owner controls the watch. And in this reference, they are smooth and silky. Okay, so we're quite a way through the disassembly of this Rolex 3135 movement now, and I just wanted to pause at this point just to show you how beautiful the movement is all the way through. I've just lifted off the barrel bridge, and that exposes the three wheels you can see there, which just sat above the mainspring barrel. And do you know, everything about this movement is just exacting. It is so businesslike, and it kind of achieves its beauty through its need to be precise. And then Rolex have put a little bit of aesthetically pleasing damascening on the plates there, and you know, the result is just so lovely. So I just wanted to pause and show you that now. And let's just look at the components that we've already taken off here. Just a quick look across this lot. We'll go through them in more detail later. But, you know, this is probably about halfway through now. The calendar works are off. The motion works are off. The keyless works are still on. And the train is in, but the balance is away, and the pallet fork is away. So, you know, we're getting on with this now. Pretty soon I will have this completely stripped down and we can go through all of the components. There we are. Okay, so before I move on, I do actually just want to talk very briefly about these two adjustment nuts here. There's one here, and there is another one this side here. Now the purpose of these nuts is to adjust by very small amounts the height of the balance bridge, because of course the balance bridge sits across here with the balance turning in here, and the bottom pivot of the balance staff sat in this hole here. Now watchmakers since the year dot have been obsessed with a thing called end shake. Now end shake is all to do with the amount of vertical travel, freedom if you like, that the balance staff has to move between its location in the bridge and the plate. Okay, now too much end shake is not a good thing, and too little is definitely not a good thing, because you end up pinching the staff and the balance really is not free to rotate. So making very small adjustments to that is a really good thing to be able to do. and the Rolex specifications for this are very tight. So, you know, this again is another great feature of this movement, of which there are many. So just wanted to point that out at this time. So let's move on. So just turning now to the bracelet, which you can see I have straightened up here. And this watch, as you can also see, has had a lot of wrist time. If you look at all the tiny little scratches on here, you know, it's actually, I think it's really, really beautiful. I wouldn't want to polish that at all. I think it's a gorgeous patina on this watch. The bracelet deployment clasp is very simple. It's not articulated like the modern ones. It just revolves around, you know, there being some pressure springiness in the metal, so that when you clip it in, it's very, very simple. And as long as it's not bent out of shape as it was at the start, then, you know, it works really, really well. And I love this, you know, two-tone effect with the blue, as I've said. So yeah, a really, really nice bracelet there on this watch. So let's go on and have a little bit more of a look at the movement. And there then is the train bridge removed, which leaves exposed the powertrain, and you can see there the second, third and fourth wheels. And then if we just come over here, you can see, although it is steel and not brass, you can see, he said, pausing to find a pointer, you can see the escape wheel here. Okay, so there we are, there's the powertrain. We are nearly at the end of disassembling this. We're just going to pop out the powertrain, and then we are going to take off this bridge here, which houses some of the winding works, and then we're going to remove the rest of the keyless works, and job's a good one. Then we can get it cleaned. Good. And you remember that one of the other things that I had to do was fix the bezel. Now I've done that by simply replacing the tension ring and the little ratchet spring that's in there, and as you can see, it works very, very well now, and just you can get right in there. There's no play in it when it finds its location. So yeah, in summary, in terms of the dial and the bezel and the way the blue and gold works together, that is really, really lovely. So let's go back now and have a look a little bit more at the movement. Yeah, so guys, this component here is the balance hack, okay? And yeah, please don't forget to put this back in when you reassemble the watch, because otherwise, you know, you'll pull the hands out and there'll be nothing here, and you'll be confused as to why the balance doesn't actually stop and the watch is no longer a hacking watch. So, you know, this is the single component that does that. So pretty important, remember to put that one back in. Unlike the Rolex 2135, at least it's a single component and is a little bit easier to actually fit into the mechanism. So as I say, gotta love the 3135 from both a user and a watchmaker point of view, because this is a great watch to work on. Okay, so we're looking close up now at the back of the automatic works, and I mentioned earlier that I thought the culprit for all of the debris around the movement was where the rotor arm comes through onto the automatic works. So just focusing in on that at the moment, and as you can see, we have got a lot of dried out lubricant sat around that jewel. It looks quite messy. Now, of course, the rotor arm is flying around the whole time, powering the watch, and as it does that, it's going to be sort of sending out across the movement these little bits of, you know, black crap, for want of a better expression, and that's not good for the movement, which is why we do a service, guys. So we're going to clean all that out, put nice fresh lubricant on that, and it's good for another 5 to 7 or 8 years, I would say. So that is what this is all about. Okay, so let's have a quick canter through now the main components of the Rolex 3135 movement, and there in its protective little box you can see the free sprung balance, the balance bridge, and its 2 retaining screws. And then coming up here we've got the calendar wheel and the cam on the bottom of it there, the lever, the spring, the little jewel, and the wheel retention plate on the top. Then we've got some of the motion works there. We've got the minute wheel and the hour wheel and the cannon pinion. Here we have the calendar works main plate and the date ring there. Then coming down here, this mechanism in the center of the frame, let's just see if we can come in on that a little bit. That actually controls the rapid date change at midnight, and there are a couple of extra components that go in there. Then we have the pallet fork bridge and the retention screws and the pallet fork. We have the click and the click spring, and some intermediate wheels for the winding mechanism, and we've got the ratchet wheel, which you can see is a little bit dirty, so we're going to sort that out. Then we have the main powertrain bridge and its 3 retention screws, and then we've got the powertrain itself, first wheel, second wheel, third wheel, fourth wheel, and escape wheel. Then we have the mainspring barrel, and also we've got the winding mechanism bridge there, and underneath that, when you disassemble the movement, you have got the balance hack there. Moving on, we've got the minute wheel pinion and its bridge and its retention screws. Then we have got the keyless works here. First up is the setting lever spring, then we've got the setting lever, then we've got the setting lever retention clamp, if we can get in focus there, and then a couple of other levers, one there for keeping the tension on the clutch. We must be getting close because we have got a stem, we have got a clutch and a winding pinion, and then we have got, and isn't that pretty, the main plate. And then fully disassembled here, just coming out slightly, we have got all the automatic works ready to go into the ultrasonic cleaner, and in 3 minutes that is the Rolex 3135 movement. Okay, so I'm now just starting the reassembly of this watch and just put in one component which I really like in this movement, and that is the balance hack, and that is this component here. Now, you know, this thing is just gonna work. It has a bridge along with some other winding components that go in here. It can't move anywhere. It's really simple design, and in this little hole here there's a pin from the setting lever, so when you pull the crown out it throws this forward, which then touches the edge of the balance here and stops it in its tracks. It's very simple. It runs on this across this post here. It can't go anywhere. It is gonna work. You know, the mean time between failure of that is going to be pretty high. So, you know, just another quick point about the design of this great movement by Rolex. Okay, so I've just put the train bridge back in, which is this component here. And again, this movement by Rolex is just so precise that it makes that a real easy thing to do. I mean, clearly with a bit of practice. So yeah, quite often with, you know, lesser movements, ones that haven't been necessarily designed so well, or the tolerances really aren't tight enough, you can be fiddling around with this thing for half an hour trying to make sure all these 4 pivots come through. Okay, because you've got to get these 4 pivots, which means there's 8 of them because there's 4 on the other side, all through before you tighten these screws down, because if you do that and one of the pivots isn't through, you'll just snap it off, and if that's a Rolex, that's going to be expensive. So, you know, this is a really, really accurate thing. You line them up, you pop it on, it goes straight on. You know, it's a joy for a watchmaker to work on, because it's a very, very accurately and intelligently produced movement, and that's, you know, that's the whole deal about these Rolex movements. And so how does it look on the wrist? Well, you know, this actually is a client's watch, so I haven't sized it for my wrist. I have a kind of rule that I never do that, otherwise one day I would get on an aeroplane and disappear to the Cayman Islands with a load of watches, and which would see me in prison pretty quickly, I guess. But you know, even when it's not sized properly, this thing look at the way that sits there on my wrist. I mean, it looks what it is. It is a classic Rolex Submariner, and this version, the 16613, with the sweep hand being powered there, as you can see, by the 3135 movement, is, you know, particularly in this blue and gold, is just to die for. So let's crack on and have a last look at the movement, and then we'll sum up about this watch. Okay, so I've just put the balance back in, and so let's just focus in on that a minute there. There it is, and you know, I love this bit. I'm pretty sure that most watchmakers really enjoy this bit of the process when you put the balance back in and the watch springs into life. And with a Rolex, particularly the 3135, it's just such a joy, because as you can see, I can already see that balance has got a nice high amplitude, and it is beating like it's on rails there, like a little heart going 10 to the dozen. This watch has just such a great movement. The Rolex 3135. I'm going to regulate this in a minute. First of all, though, I'm actually going to reassemble the automatic works. I've got to put the calendar works on as well. Then the movement is complete. We'll do some regulation and pop it back in its case. But, you know, I kind of rest my case here with the 3135. What I wanted to get across in this sort of technical part of the video is just how good this movement is. So I hope I've accomplished that. Okay, so the movement is now back in the Submariner case, and I have done a regulation of it, and as you can see now, it is running much more like a chronometer. I mean, if you look at the trace there, you know, there's almost no beat error. It's reading no beat error, and it's also reading a, you know, rate error of 0 seconds a day, which is, oh, it's just gone up to 1 second a day, but you know, that is within specification. So very pleased about that. If you want to know how to regulate one of these Rolexes, then I recommend watching my video on the Rolex 2135. I did a full service of that, and in the third part of the series of 3 videos, I showed you in some detail how to regulate one of these free sprung balances by Rolex. So yeah, chuffed with that. So let's sum up now on why I think that this particular reference, the Rolex Submariner 16613, is maybe the best Submariner that Rolex has so far produced. Now, you know, it's really all about form and function. So let's deal firstly with the form. you know, what is it? What does this watch look like? Well, you know, look at it in front of you there. The proportions of the dial, to my mind, are absolutely perfect. You know, the bezel is great, and I know it's not a ceramic bezel, but you know, I just love it, and it just looks great on the wrist. The size, I didn't mention the size, but the size is 40 millimeters across the bezel, and you can add another about 3.4 for the crown, so it's 43. But the watch wears just, it just sits on a man's wrist like it's meant to be there. I think it just looks so classy. So in terms of form, you know, what the thing looks like, it's such a great watch, right up there. I think better than its predecessors, and I believe it looks better, although of course it's a taste thing, than the newer ones that you can get in the authorized dealers now. So turning to look then at the function, well, you know, I deliberately in this video have taken you through, I hope not laboriously, and I hope it's been interesting, but a good look at the movement that powers this watch, and that is the Rolex 3135. And you know, that is just such an accurate and reliable watch movement, and it's just a joy to work on. The thing is really the combination and the culmination of years and years and years of effort by very, very talented watchmakers and designers at Rolex. And you know, it's a movement that can be looked after for decades and decades, and I'm quite sure, you know, 100 years, 200 years from now, somewhere there will be some cool geezer on a planet in a solar system a long way away from ours, and he'll be kicking back in the bar sporting one of these watches. I have no doubt about that at all. And you know, because this watch is iconic, the 3135 movement is okay, it's been superseded, but guys, you know, Rolex and watchmakers in the future will be able, I'm sure, to support that movement because it's just so massive. So guys, that is a summary of why I think this is a candidate for the best Rolex Submariner of all time. My name is Richard Perrett. As I say, I'm a watchmaker here, full-time in Pembroke Dock in the United Kingdom. And if you like this video, then please give it a like, and why not subscribe? I'm making a lot of content at the moment, and so there's a lot of interesting and exciting stuff coming up. So yeah, please subscribe, please hit the bell icon there to get alerts. But that's quite a detailed look at that watch, and that's probably enough now for one sitting. So I'm going to toddle off now and get this lot edited and then get to my bed. But from the watch bench here in Pembroke Dock, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and good night guys, and God bless.